organizational change. The velocity of change is so rapid, so quick that if you don't accept the change and move with the change, you are going to be left behind. Successful organizations monitor their environments and take appropriate steps to maintain a compatible fit with new external conditions. Rather than resisting change, employees in successful companies embrace change as an integral part of organizational life. It is easy to see that environmental forces push companies to change the way they operate. What is more difficult to see is the complex interplay of these forces on the internal dynamics of organizations. Social psychologists Kurt Lewin developed a model to describe this process using the metaphor of a force field. Although it was developed more than 50 years ago, recent reviews affirm that Lewin's force field analysis model remains one of the most widely respected ways of viewing the changing process. Now, talk about driving forces. What is driving process? It is a way on pushing organizations toward a new state of affairs. This might include new competitors or technologies, involving workforce expectations, or a host of other environmental change. For instance, some experts call for demand discontent as a key feature of a successful organization, meaning that leaders continually urge employees to strive for higher standards or better practices. Next is restraining forces. Restraining forces means we want to maintain the status quo. These restraining forces are commonly called resistance to change because they appear to block the change process. Lewin's force field model emphasizes that effective change occurs by unfreezing the current situation, moving to a desired condition, and then refreezing the system so it remains a restraining forces. Refreezing occurs when the organizations, systems, and structures are aligned with the desired behaviors. They must support and reinforce the new role patterns and prevent the organization from slipping back into the old way of doing things.
Why people are resistant to change? There are many resistant to change. These are negative values of change, fear of the unknown, breaking routines, and current team dynamic. The first resistant to change is negative values of change. Specifically, resistance to change is higher when employees believe that the change will have more negative than positive outcome, and then the negative outcome have a high probability of occurring and the positive outcome have a low probability of occurring. Although employees consider their personal cost and the benefit from the change, their resistance or commitment also depends on their belief that the change will benefit or harm the team and the company. Even if the personally benefit to some degree, employees may oppose the change if they believe the result or the initiative will be ineffective for the organization. Second resistance is fear of the unknown. All change includes some degree of uncertainty. People lack the ability to accurately predict or visualize the future situation. When employees do not know the probability of good or bad outcomes from the change, they tend to anticipate worse rather than better outcomes. Only when the present conditions are very bad do most people welcome uncertain future. Uncertainty also associated with lack of personal control. This lack of control generates negative emotion, particularly when the change potentially affects the things of importance such as our job, career, and self-concept. 3. Breaking routines. Breaking routine is the three examples of the resistance to change. People typically resist initiatives that force them out of their comfort zones and require them to invest time and energy in learning new rule patterns. Indeed, most people in one survey admitted they do not follow enough with career change because they like to keep things the way they are and the change seems too complicated and time-consuming. And lastly, incorrect time dynamics. The team develop and enforce and conformity to a set of norms that guide behavior. However, conformity to existing team norms may discourage employees from accepting organizational change. For instance, organizational initiative to improve customer service may be avoid by teams norms that discourage the extra effort accepted to serve customers at this higher standard.
And the last resistance to change is incumbent organizational system, rewards information system, patterns of authority, career path, selection criteria, and other system and structure are both strengths and force of organization change. When properly aligned, they reinforce desired behavior. When misaligned, they will pull people back into their old attitudes and behavior.
Talk about appreciative inquiry process. A appreciative inquiry process tries to break out of the problem-solving mentality of traditional change management practices by reframing relationships around the positive and the possible. It searches for organizational or teams' strengths and capabilities and then applies or adapts that knowledge for further success and well-being. Appreciative inquiry is therefore deeply grounded in the emerging philosophy of positive organizational behavior, which suggests that focusing on the positive rather than the negative aspects of life will improve organizational success and well-being. In other words, this approach emphasizes building on strengths rather than trying to directly correct problems. Appreciative inquiry typically examines successful events, organizations, and work units. This focus becomes a form of behavioral modeling, but it also increases open dialogue by redirecting the group's attention away from its own problems. Appreciative inquiry is especially useful when participants are aware of their problems, are already suffer from negativity in their relationships. The practices orientation of appreciative inquiry enable groups to overcome this negative tension and build a non-hopeful perspective on their futures by focusing on what is possible. There are 5 principles of appreciative inquiry. First, positive principle. Positive principle focusing on positive events and potential produce both positive, effective, and enduring change. Second, constructionist principle. How we perceive and understand the change process depends on the questions we ask and language we use throughout the process. Third one is simultaneity principle. Inquiry and change are simultaneous, not sequential. Fourth one is poetic principle. Poetic principle means that organizations are open books, so we have choices in how they may be perceived, framed, and described. The last one is anticipatory principle, means that people are motivated and guided by the visions they see and believe in for the future. That's all.
There are 4 D models of appreciative inquiry. The first is discovery. Appreciative inquiry begins with discovery, whereby identifying the positive elements of the observed event or organization. This might involve documenting positive customer experiences elsewhere in the organization, or it might include interviewing members of another organization to discover its fundamental strength. Second is dreaming. As participants discuss their findings, they shift into the dreaming stage by envisioning what might be possible in an ideal organization. By pointing out a hypothetical ideal organization or situation, participants feel safer revealing their hopes and aspirations than they were discussing their own organization and predicaments. Third is designing. As participants make their private thoughts public to the group, the process shifts into the third stage, called designing. Designing involves dialogue in which participants listen with selfless receptivity to each other's model and assumption, and eventually from a collective model for thinking with the team. In effect, they create a common image of what should be. As this model takes shape, group members shift the focus back to their own situation, and the lastly is delivery. In the final stage of appreciative inquiry, called delivery, and in another name is destiny, participants establish specific objective and direction for their own organization on the basis of their model of what will be